Welcome back to Bonded by Metal to another episode with Andrew McKay Smith from Scars and Guitars podcast. Again, guys, go check him out if you want to see a bunch of just high quality interviews with various bands. And today we have an interesting topic to talk about. It's something that I'm sure comes up a lot when we talk to various artists. Is this idea of the way music was promoted before internet and after the internet? The idea of people bought albums versus streaming albums on the internet. People listen to a full album versus listening to songs, and kind of the financial aspect and implications on various bands and how they felt it shake up. So I thought from a fan's perspective, from a journalist perspective, I think it'd be an interesting topic to discuss here with Andrew. And I think I'm going to hand it off to him and begin the conversation to see where this goes.
I've got a question for everybody. Where does everybody sit and how does everybody feel about Lars Ulrich's view on Metallica's fight against Napster and bringing fans into that?
Back in the day.
I'll allow the listener or the viewer, the person that's tuned in via YouTube, to ponder that question for a moment, because I think it has a lot to do with your attitude toward the modern era and how we consume music, because that was really, as far as I'm concerned, so let's just stick to heavy music. That was our zeitgeist. Okay, that was the ADBC, so to speak. That was the moment, okay, where whether Lars liked it or not, he brought massive attention to, it was called file sharing back then, but it was just another name for streaming.
Yeah.
It was another name for streaming. And from the perspective that, for me personally, I think I bought about 10 CDs after that. The rest of it was just downloading through. I was already using Napster. Who wasn't? Let's face it, as heavy music fans, I got into so many bands because of Napster. There was a massive upside to it. We weren't paying for it, but there was a huge upside to it. All of a sudden, all of this music from these German thrash bands and these death metal bands, it was available. Suffocation, Creator, Destruction, Tankard, Immolation, all of these. I mean, what when you're a young fella and you got no money, how are we going to listen to all of this magnificent music if it wasn't for Napster? So that was a serious upside to that. I absolutely understand that it made it tremendously difficult to understand what the commercial model was moving forward. But from a philosophical perspective, I wonder where everybody out there sits on this topic, because I know there's a bunch of people that were at the time not using streaming, or not using Napster, blah blah blah. But really, I think that it was the game changer that globally music needed, because it took the power away from the record companies and put it into the hands of the listener. What are your thoughts, mate?
You know, I was a heavy user of Napster torrents. Like you said, just like you, that the only way I was able to discover so many bands is by downloading them and then supporting them with merch or going to their concerts. But my view recently has changed, actually, because as much as I only use now streaming, I don't like having physical copies of things because I don't need it to pile in my house. That's the main reason why I don't do that. And the convenience of switching quickly. But the overall idea, I've switched my perspective on it completely, because even the labels aside, the new, I don't mean to say it this way, but the new slave owner is the streaming services, and they can completely can call the shots. You know, it's like, because they know the bands have to be there. You have no other choice. That is the only way to discover. They set very low margins for them. And I feel that's where the responsibility of perhaps fans to come together and be like, this is bullshit. You have to give artists a bigger pay cut, or perhaps even artists themselves protesting against it, but they don't have another choice. What are you going to do? Word of mouth in the digital world? It's just not going to have the same effect. That's kind of where I believe. And for example, to this day, I don't know if you're one of those people. I don't believe so. I think we both listened to an album from beginning to the end.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am.
How many people now, especially younger people, they don't have the attention span. They just consume a song. I have people many times tell me, I'm a fan of this band. I listen to 5 songs. I was like, what? You didn't listen to one album and you call yourself a fan? For me, that's like a concept that's weird to wrap around my head.
Yeah, and it's totally a product of the modern era and attention spans, ever diminishing attention spans, courtesy of these bloody things. And we're all doing it. I'm as guilty as the next person. I'm not casting a stone on anybody out there.
100%.
It's a terrible thing. I mean, these psychopaths that write the algorithms that they force us into constant scrolling. Okay, and I understand that it's the same methodology behind the code. The code is imbued with the same methodology as what we call the pokies. You know, like when you go to Las Vegas, we've got them all over here in Australia, RSL clubs and stuff. But those bloody awful pokey machines that cause a very small percentage of the population to get addicted. Now, there's a tremendous downside for those people, but for us too, and that's for them over the short term. For us over the longer term, I believe there's a tremendous downside to using these bloody things. And one of the downsides is our diminishing attention span around albums. Okay, so it's hardly in line with some of the more broader things, social issues or what have you. But it's something that I think, this show here is all about talking about music, but it is something that's had a direct ramification on music. Okay, and and again, drawing it back to that ADBC moment with Napster. How many? Here's another question for the audience. How many classic albums have come out since 1999, year 2000? In my opinion, there are many, okay, but they're not universally regarded in the same way as albums that came out prior to that. In other words, what's the Ride the Lightning or the Master of Puppets of the post 2000 era? Let's just call it the post Napster era. You could argue that there are a couple, but there's no supernovas, is what I'm saying. Even the last big metal event, truly the last big global metal event, was new metal, and that was a record company thing. That happened before streaming.
And you know what I think is also happening is there's a lot more competition because now everything's on streaming services. It's extremely hard to stand out. Back in the day, it's like, it had to be spread through word of mouth. Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple. That's how you heard about these bands. And I really can't believe the fact that I'm actually with Lars now. I totally understand, because that's the only way these bands grow, if they get paid. It was a heartbreaking thing. I was so naive when I first began this channel. I thought every single band were musicians full time. That's the naivety I came in with. And being my heart broken over and over with each interview, everybody's saying, oh, no, we work regular jobs. For example, I interviewed Freddie Vidalis from Ashes of Arius. He's like, I've never gotten paid for music, ever. I never made money from it. I just really enjoy doing it. How many people give up their art because they're just not, they can't. They have other things and other priorities to take care of. And they so much rely on touring now. And with everything that's right now, it's being kind of castrated. They don't have the ability to tour to make any kind of ends meet. I don't know if you saw my interview with Shotter from Dagobah. He's like, I hate the internet. It just completely killed us. And
oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, he just goes out, just strip. I hate it. I don't like it. And if it's something, what I noticed, most people don't blame the labels. The artists, they don't blame the labels because they know the labels are not getting anything. And the argument I'll make, and I'll kind of hand it over to you after this, is the idea of a modern band. You are forced to utilize social media in a strategic way and be a businessman to really carry a message across and have your band explode. And if you don't do it and you keep to the archaic ways of just the way metal kind of spread at first, you're just not going to survive.
Yeah, it's such a great point. We may have spoken about this. I might have spoken about this during our chats, but I certainly have spoken about it with other artists that I've interviewed over the years. But the Spotify CEO, the Swedish fella, many years ago said, this is before people clued into how big Spotify were going to become. But he said something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, here, that it's no longer about album release tour, etc., like what Faith No More and Metallica did back in the day. Nowadays, it's about artists understanding how to bring content. There's that key word. Because, again, it comes back to the way we consume information, and we're consuming information in small bites. And I had a conversation with somebody at work 2 days ago. We were in agreement. And, hey, look, because I'm in my mid-40s, I will go on record and say I simply don't understand TikTok. I don't understand its relevance from the perspective of what the hell are people seeing in it. Okay, these 5 to 10 second clips. I think that's what it is, isn't it, with TikTok?
You can make it up to a minute, yeah.
A minute, is it? Okay, yeah. The ones that I've seen come across Instagram in particular, and they've got that, that TikTok
Emblem.
signature in the bottom left hand, in the bottom left hand corner. They've been around 5 to 10 seconds each, and they're very quick. There's like about 17 cuts in a 5 to 10 second clip, and it's very schizophrenic. And you're like, it's an assault. And I think what's this got to do with the music industry? That's the fella's point. What does it have to do with the music industry? What does it have to do with your band? This is consumers determining to, like, the market. Let's just call it the broader market. This is the market reacting to technology, consumers plugging into it and going, that's the way I want to consume information. The artists, and it's no longer it really hasn't, success has really had anything to do with talent. I think we both agree on that. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just how well you understand the systems that plug you into the way in which you can reach the people in a way that the people feel it is meaningful. Okay. And the artists that are able to do that at the moment, the metal artists that are able to do that at the moment, who's doing a good job? Off the top of my head, I couldn't name anybody specifically. Dave Mustaine doesn't do a bad job.
Yeah. He stays very connected to his fans. Yeah.
Yeah, he seems to understand, but then he's an established artist. What about a new artist? There's a band, Mike Portnoy's son has a group called Tala, and they're signed to Earache, I think. And I think they do a fairly, they seem to do a pretty good job. They're out there. I see their shorts, as I'd call them, their shorts, their videos. Has that made me want to go across and listen to an entire album? No, even though it's right, every album ever released by a major record label and every independent that's worthy of anything under the sun is available to us right now on our fingertips, in our devices. Has it made me listen to their music? No, it hasn't. But mate, it's such a huge topic to address.
I was going to bring a counter argument to that, actually, to that point that you brought.
No, go for it. Yeah,
because you and I, we have exactly a decade difference in age. So in many ways, I do relate. Actually, still being in my 30s, I relate to the ideas you're saying, but I've also realized every single technology can be utilized in proper way. And for example, what's happening even more so with fans now than I would say in the 80s and 90s and 70s is people always were fan obsessed. They become big fans, groupies, they want to follow the band. Well, now it's so much easier to do because if you as a musician, it has nothing to do with music, but them following your life or the things that you're updating. And like, for example, going to TikTok and being interactive with your fans. It doesn't even have to be music. Hey guys, we just finished a new track. It's going to be a killer fucking track. Check it out. It's going to come. That alone gets fans to feel that they're more connected to their artist than ever before. And that's where I feel like utilizing, we see the negative side of a lot of these videos. And yes, they are the majority. I'm not arguing that. But I believe Instagram, even Twitter, all of them can be utilized in proper ways to really put your message across and come off as just more relatable. And they will see you kind of expand and grow. Orbit culture, I think they've really exploded by properly utilizing reactions, by properly utilizing social media, having their own YouTube channel and utilizing the ad revenue. They are definitely a band that's, first of all, good and also modern in understanding all these kind of new techniques.
Yeah, it does beg the question though, and you've already talked about it though. How do you make a living courtesy of doing this stuff? Okay, so if the vast majority of the bands that have new to market post year 2000, if the vast majority, I mean, this was the case beforehand, okay, but I'm talking about the ones that we talk to, the ones that we have access to, in the majority of instances. If they've come out after year 2000, your chances are that's music is their side gig. It's just a big side gig. Even if they're signed to Nuclear Blast or what have you. Whereas before year 2000, even as an indie journalist, you had an opportunity to talk to a musician. Chances are he or she was of the opinion that, yeah, I'm very busy with this right now. I might not be making money with it, but it is the thing that is my main gig, if you like. So technology, in a way, has sidelined the musician's ability to earn. But then let's flip the script a little bit and let's talk about, you talked about Dagobah, the fella not liking the internet. I heard through the grapevine, I don't know whether this is just mother's myth or rumor mill or what have you, but Iron Maiden apparently very early on in the piece approached, was it Napster or LimeWire? I can't recall, one of the two,
Yeah.
So Rod Smallwood is a very smart fella. In my opinion, he is the platform in which Iron Maiden were able to launch a career alongside the music. Quality of the music, sure, but then his management style. Apparently, he or someone from his management company, Sanctuary, approached LimeWire or Napster and said, we don't give a shit that you're doing it, okay, that you're sharing the music and we're not taking a clip. What we want to know is from which territories. Give us the list of the territories, the percentages, okay? Tell us how many tens of thousands of people and hundreds of thousands of people, indeed millions of fans are listening to our, streaming our music, downloading our music, and from which territory. Now, I again, I think this could be a myth, but it sounds reasonable, doesn't it? That someone would approach me and go, just tell us where people are listening from. They gave them the data. They worked out that there are all of these brand new territories where they had the hard data finally to determine, yes, if we tour South America and go to these countries and we stay here for 3 dates in Argentina, these are the cities we need to tour. If we go to Eastern Europe or Russia, these are the places that we need to visit, because this is from where, these are the epicenters of where people are downloading our music from, all the major, St. Petersburg and Moscow and all these sort of places. Finally, they could go there and tour there regularly. There was massive upside, but you had to have incredible business acumen to understand how to use that data. Okay.
I agree.
Yeah. So that was the upside, is the reach. So there you go. So the reach. So all of a sudden, you and I, we still haven't met in person, but we can do this. You're in New York and I'm on the Gold Coast in Australia, and we can do this courtesy of the internet. It's an incredibly powerful tool, as humanity is just beginning to come to grips with how powerful this tool is. Look at all the social unrest that has been driven by access to information over the internet that we've seen over the past 2 to 3 years.
Yeah,
even COVID.
You can't deny technology in what it's done. Also, I'm going to paraphrase Elon Musk. He goes like, look, you have 2 options. This is happening whether you like it or not. You can either assimilate and adjust, or you can be left behind. Because at a certain point, you can't stop the moving train. So how do you adapt as a younger band, or a younger band who's just getting into the market? Is you have to be smart. You have to use the algorithm. Why does one YouTube channel grow faster than another YouTube channel? By utilizing analytics, understanding what's going on, a lot of things that you're pointing out here. And it's not the fun part of it. For example, me as a personal trainer, it's not fun for me to go to various marketing services and try to find a client and call each one. That's not the fun part of the job, but I have to do to stay relevant and to be able to stay employed. So there are the fun parts of every job, and there's the things that we don't want to do. And there's always going to be things we don't want to do. They have to utilize social media, and touring is something that's been pointed out to me. I forgot who said it when I was interviewing them. Is like the difference between touring, for example, like pop music and rap music and metal, is that pop, they can sell out arenas very easily. They just go to really big venues, so their touring schedule is much shorter. That's why they also produce albums much quicker. They can turn around and do another album. Whereas touring for a band who's going to be doing 300 people, they got to do fucking hundreds of shows for 6-7 months in a row to make anywhere close to that kind of money. And most of them don't, unless you're Megadeth, unless you're Slayer, unless you're Iron Maiden.
Yeah, I do wonder what the cutoff point, the economics of scale are, because one of the things that comes up all the time with artists that I'm interviewing. So these are, this would be, I think I had this conversation with Morris from Blood Incantation. We were talking about Blood Incantation off camera beforehand. And the topic was like, I think he'd been to Australia, but he was talking about how you wouldn't make any money touring Australia as a band at that level. Yeah. So, and I understand that, because in Australia, you got St. Vitus Spa there in Brooklyn. In Australia, the equivalent might be Crowbar, and there's going to be, just off the top of my head, 400 or 500 people there. But are you going to get that? Probably not. You're going to get 200 to 300. So multiply that by the 4 or 5 places you can play in Australia, because that's all we've got. That's all of the population can sustain. Yeah, it's per head. Even if people are paying, I don't pay to go, because obviously doing this, I get just the agent says, yeah, here's a ticket, go, because they want me to cover it and bring attention to it for future tours, that sort of thing. But I think they're about 50 to 60 to 70 Australian dollars, which is about, take off about $20, and you've got the equivalent US. So if it's $50 Australian, it's $30 US. So I wonder what the cutoff point is there. for bands to do, because plenty of bands have come to Australia and not made any money. But you've got to then extrapolate that globally and say, and Australia is what they call it's an incorruptible market, meaning that you come here, you get paid. How many stories have I heard and read about with death metal bands going to South America and ending up just getting out by the skin of their teeth because the promoter basically stole the funds.
Yeah, stolen money. It's something Matt Barlow pointed out to me. I asked him, I'm so excited to find an interview. I'm like, are you guys going to tour? He's like, well, we'll maybe tour, the US. And he was very optimistic. And then I talked to Freddie, and Freddie's like, man, I contacted, must have been 30, 40 different venues. Most people don't even respond. Most people don't even respond. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So they're even having trouble booking places. So it's like, I even asked him, like, what can we do as fans? Should we go and protest? He's like, I mean, you could just ask different venues for different artists, but it's like, there's nothing you can do. And I feel even powerless as a fan. What can I do? I can spread the message about a band, right? On my YouTube channel, on my Facebook page. You could do by an interview with somebody. And we can listen to their music and pass it on to somebody else, word of mouth. There's not much power in our hands anymore as well, like we've had before. The only thing we can do is with our dollar. Even that's reduced because everything is on streaming services. It really is a grim outlook for a lot of musicians. I believe so. Because I look at some hip hop artists on YouTube, they make it big by just being completely self-distributed, self-made on YouTube. It's enough of a platform for them to make it big. I just don't think it resonates the same way with rock and heavy metal because we want live shows.
No, you're right. Yeah, it's a completely different paradigm. The live music arena is our fire pit, so to speak. If we're in Stone Age culture or what have you, we all came. As soon as it went dark, we all went around the fire pit. Well, for metal fans, that's the live arena. The not lately, but typically, whenever we can get back to normal, 1 or 2 times a month we're able to watch a band. That's our fire pit. It's emotionally and spiritually invigorating to be able to do that. But that's just to go back what you said about Matt Barlow and the other fella from what's the name of the band that Matt's in that you
Ashes of Aries?
Okay, Ashes of Aries. So I'm not totally familiar with the band, but I find that astounding that they could contact up to 30, 40, 50 venues and they don't even hear back. And they're a known band with known musicians. I assume in the US they draw at least a couple of hundred. They'd be a draw. But that, again, it comes into that scale, but it hints at something else. Now, I didn't speak about it with Des Fafara from Devil Driver and Cold Chamber when I had a conversation with him. But, I think he makes most of his money. I don't know this for a fact, but I assume he makes most of his money from management these days. So he looks after, Jose Mangin, I think his name is. He's a metal personality there in the States. And I think he was on satellite radio or something. Anyway, he looks after him. He's everywhere on a certain level. Cradle of Filth. There's a bunch of other bands that Des actually manages. Okay.
Yeah.
So Des being a fairly well-known fella himself. And then there's someone correct me if I'm wrong when I say this, please, because I haven't done a massive amount of research about this, but my understanding is there's only 4 or 5 touring companies globally these days that are worth plugging into. And if you're like Matt and you mustn't be plugged into one of those 4 or 5 touring companies, you don't get access to the venues. So how do you get plugged into these 4 or 5 touring companies that give you access to the venues? Because I sure as shit know that's how it works in Australia. There's Soundworks and there's a couple of others. There's about 3 ones that bring all of the metal bands into the country.
Yeah, I can think of 2 here: Ticketmaster and Live Nation. That's the only ones I can even think of.
Yeah, is there below that though? So St. Vitus Bar there in Brooklyn, do you know if they've got a relationship or an association with like a couple of the touring companies?
Very, very small ones. Like I don't even remember. It's so bad. I don't even remember their names. The smaller touring companies. And most of the time, I miss those concerts because I never get any advertisement for it.
Yeah. I know it's definitely a case if you got to know where to look still, isn't it?
Yeah. From time to time, you have to do your due diligence and actually go on the internet, research, see who's around in town, and not just rely on the algorithm of Ticketmaster to suggest a concert that's going to be near you.
Just to bring things full circle on that topic, it means it proves the point that the Swedish CEO of Spotify has, which is that bands need to work out how to bring meaningful content to fans so that they're plugged into their universe and they know when they're touring. Okay, so it all comes back down to how the artist engages the audience and says, hey, look, we've got meaningful content and we're going to be playing near you on this date here. And I know you and I follow all of our favorite bands. There's very few bands I every time I think of a band that it comes up as a suggestion, like, shit, why aren't I already following Destruction or whatever it might be? And then follow, boom, done. But then it comes down to the algorithm to sort of push meaningful content up. So it's like the game resets and changes all over again, because the algorithm doesn't show the most recent update from all of the people that you're following. It puts up suggestions based on content that you've interacted with.
You know what I think, and I mean, this is going to feel like I'm defending what I'm doing here, but I think it's a point to be made. I feel like reactions have become such a great way to bring new music to people. For example, in all honesty, I never needed a reaction to find a new band. I liked doing the research on my own. That's just kind of how I like it. I know you probably won't be watching many reactions, but there's also other people where you get that feeling of a friend in the room showing you something that you've never seen before and having a conversation about it. And it brings a lot of bands that are unknown to you. And this happened to me with a lot where I purposely cover bands that are small sometimes, because I know they're not going to get me much views, but I think they're good and they're worth spotlighting. And as I grow, that viewership on that particular band grows. And it kind of translates. More people discover. I hope so that me doing an interview with Matt and Freddie will get 2 more eyes to Ashes of Arius. And I think it's so important for each one of them to be very established in the social realm now. And like you said, creating content, not just music, behind the scenes, conversations with people, being more personal than before, because metal bands are not known to be super personal. It's like, hey, I made an album, I'm gonna go on tour, I'm gonna be a nice guy while I'm there, but like, I just want to take a break. You look at any pop artist, they're everywhere all the time, and that's how they stay relevant. I'm not saying do it to that extent, but I feel like some of that lesson needs to be taken for heavy metal bands as well. Like you said, Dave Mustaine as well.
Yeah, he's an established artist though, so I wouldn't say I'm intensely interested in what he's got to say, but if I see that he's got a brand new update, so say this morning, I'll watch at least 30 seconds of it to see what the hell he's going to be banging on about, because he's always got some angle, hasn't he?
But for example, let's say Blood Incantation. Not a lot of people know this band, right? What if he came out and he's like, hey, we made the way we made the new album, you're already waiting for it. It's a small band, but you're okay, let me see how they made the new album. Let's see what kind of work they put into it. You'll be probably interested in watching like a 5-minute video, but that's great content for them to put a lot of information in there.
You and I want to give you a lot of credit for what you do with the reaction videos, because I'd barely heard of them before you contacted me. I didn't even know they were a thing, if that made sense. Yeah. Like, then I saw that you were starting to do it, and I see the amount of comments you get, because a lot of people probably do understand this, but if you don't, YouTube's algorithm is motivated not necessarily by views, but by comments. Okay, and fan interactions. So you can have a video that has, say, 5,000 views, but if it's only got 3 comments, that's not going to push it toward the suggestions list when people are scrolling through.
Yeah.
Okay, and you could argue there's Famoid and all these other services that buy views anyway, so people know how to game the system. Like, it's obvious to see when people are gaming the system. Major, I won't say any here because they're very litigious, some of these bloody major mastheads. Rolling Stone, they buy. I can tell you, like, people have deep dived on this stuff, and there's a lot of suspicion there that they're buying views, streams, clicks, this kind of thing in order to keep them relevant. I know the local version of it puts up a post, and unless it's very scandalous, it's clickbait, like the recent Joe Rogan, Joni Mitchell,
the mess, with the Spotify,
the stuff. This not Joni Mitchell. What's that
old
name? Neil Young. Yeah, unless it's very clickbaity, I don't even think it gets 1 or 2 likes. Yeah. So they've got like 70 or 80,000 people who follow or like their page or more, yet they don't get any interaction. That doesn't make any sense. So the 70 or 80,000 people don't care about their posts.
You know what it is? It's also people are keen on it, I think. What I try to do personally, this is just my philosophy in any job I've ever been in, is just be yourself 100%. Who you are, be true to yourself. If people like your personality, they'll come. And the ones that don't, what can you do? And I started realizing when just expressing yourself 100%, I'm sure it translates to bands as well. When you're being yourself 100%, you will grow in this platform. And I feel like it's as I'm seeing myself grow and I'm growing faster. Yes, I am picking some songs out because I know they're going to give me a lot of views. Of course, that would be dumb for me not to do that. But I find it important to do bands that are less known, that might be more extreme, that might be unknown just because I love them. Because at the very least, I might have this slither of small influence of a couple of people that I always interact with. But for example, I've heard already a couple of comments saying, hey, you introduced me to this band. I've never heard of them before. And you know what? Same goes all the way around. I got introduced to bands because they keep suggesting things. And I'm like, okay, I'll try it out. Let's see what it's all about. Meshuggah. I got into Meshuggah now because thanks to a lot of positive comments like, dude, you picked the wrong album, try to go with this song. It's what we used to have back in forums. Remember those days when you have interact on forums? I'm getting that feeling now, but it's so much more personal, especially when you're being 100% honest. You're not there just for views and you're not there just to be clickbaity.
Yeah, you hit on a very important point there. You can't fake it till you make it. You can't. You have to be you. I couldn't do the reaction videos. It's not something that I have within me. I didn't even know about them until I saw you doing them. So therefore but what I do love to do is that old school journalism, asking questions. I like getting to the bottom of things with the artist. Yesterday, a bit of a dream come true. I spoke to Dean DeLeo from Stone Temple Pilots.
Nice.
Get it? They're not a metal band, they're a rock band, but talk to a metal band and chances are that those members love Stone Temple Pilots. Incredibly influential outfit in that respect, a gateway band, not just to metal, but to music.
Yes.
And that's so important there. But you have these conversations and there are some pinch yourself moments because you're talking to people whose music you listened to when you were 14 and 15, right at the zeitgeist, grunge. And of the grunge, the zeitgeist of the grunge era, and a band that has been around now and hasn't had enduring popularity for 30 years, and you're able to get to the bottom with someone who wrote a lot of this band's music. And that comes back to you sort of got to work out the inner. If you're doing what we do, you've got to work out what's your inner clock, the beat, the cadence. Okay,
what's going to make
that? Yeah, what's that rhythm? What's it going to make it beat the loudest? And for me, it's just conversations. For you, it's clearly. I mean, I know you do the conversations too, but you're acing the reaction videos, and it might not always be that way for both of us. We might decide to do different things in the future, but for now, this is what we're effective. This is our brand. This is what it is that we do, and I think that's the same for the musicians too. They might go, look, I'm pretty sure the guys in Blood Incantation, they just don't really do social media. I won't speak for Morris and the guys, but they just release music and albums, and they've got enough of a hardcore following, people like me that have died in the wool Blood Incantation fans, that no matter what they release, I'm interested. I'm going to be streaming. I'm going to be buying the vinyl, probably even the CD. They're just one of those bands that I think have connected with people on that level, but that's authentic.
I'm going to pose a question that I think is going to be one difficult both of us to answer. Is what is your view of a solution for this whole mess? What do you think can possibly help artists to really get some kind of an income from all this? What would be your solution?
My immediate response is, if I had an answer, I wouldn't share it here. I'd go and market it. That because you become a billionaire overnight, a trillionaire overnight. But I think there are some ways that I suspect may help, and it all comes down to social media marketing. It all comes down to how well running your business. I know with running my website and just trying to get broader coverage on some of my conversations that I'm having. It all comes down to how well you understand how to link in with the social media algorithm. How to forget about gaming the system. You cannot game the system. These people that graduate from Harvard and wherever else they graduate from and go and work for Google, Apple, they're smarter than anybody.
Yeah,
okay,
100%.
You're not going to beat them. All these people go, just buy likes and do this stuff. It's like, it works in the short term. It gives you a bit of a boost. It's like a nitro boost, but then you come back to reality. Okay. You have to work out how to create meaningful content, and I think I kind of sounds like we're talking about the same thing. to answer your question, but I think that's the case. You've got to work out how to create meaningful content that keeps your fans engaged for longer and then grows your audience. Okay. And how do you do that? Well, that's the question.
Well, you know what I'm going to say, it's that what you said there, because the main thing now, more so than ever, is to create loyalty. If you create loyalty among fans, they will go to your concerts, they will buy your t-shirts, they will be your returning income, so to say, for the rest of your life. And when you
achieve genuine, advocacy. Yeah, advocacy. Sorry, I had to put that word in there because that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. I didn't want. I know it sounds very businessy, but as long as you stay true to yourself, but you utilize the tools around you to show that you are genuine, but you want to make it there. It's a lie if any band ever told me that I don't care about money. It's bullshit. Everybody cares about money. You just not only focused on money. That's the problem. That's the good thing about, for example, listening to Freddie tell me, of course I want to make it financially, but that's not the most important thing for me. That's extremely nice to hear because I felt it from him. He was genuine. Of course he wants to make money from Ashes of Arius, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But now somebody who's a little bit more savvy utilize the tools. Also, I think these various streaming services, they have to understand how reliant they are on these people. Whatever environment, whether it's them standing up and protesting against these services, whether bands start creating their own services like Rammstein, which they're not on any service except their website.
Is that right? I didn't know that. There you go.
Yeah. They have music videos posted, but their music to stream, you have to go to their website. So perhaps something like this. Just have your own mini streaming service where you can go in there. It's just, of course, smaller bands won't be discovered as fast, but you'll make more money. You'll make thousands more money. Utilize YouTube, have your own streaming service for the loyal fans, and it will help you grow. Another one, Shadow of Intent, another band that's really utilizing that very well. I think as much as I appreciate what labels are doing, is creating good marketing, bringing these bands to my eye, they're becoming, unfortunately, more and more obsolete. And I don't see them being like that what do you call it, that third party that between the user and the musician is going to be erased, I think. And within maybe like 5 to 10 years, it's just not going to be relevant anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I say, brother, it's the person that is able to unlock that code, if you like, just how to stay relevant and make money and do it in a way that is meaningful and consistent and adapts and evolves with trends as they appear on the internet, because the internet is really where it's at. If anybody can do that, they're going to have a lot of bands sign up to their management or their agency. Okay. But I understand exactly what you're saying. And to come back to that point, loyalty, achieving advocacy, you've got someone who will then plug into everything that the band is doing. But the scale is difficult, isn't it? There are just so many great bands.
I'll tell you this much. You're never going to get to everything, right? It's like going to Netflix. There's too much content for you to consume. You have to narrow your focus. But as a personal trainer, I'll tell you this. I'd rather have 5 loyal clients than 30 come and goes.
Yeah.
Because I have consistency. I know what to expect. That is why I don't bullshit my clients. I don't lie to my clients. I tell them the truth right to their eye. Can I lose 30 pounds in 1 month? No, you can't. That's not how it works. And I realize, yes, people turn away and they don't come back to me. But the ones that stay for a long period of time. And for musicians, that's the important thing. It's people that stick with them for the long period of time. And I think personally, there is a responsibility on the journalist side, on the reactor side, and anybody who uses the name of a band for their content. You have a responsibility to honestly portray what is happening, to spread the word. If you're using, even if you don't like Blood Incantation, if you're using their name for interviews, for reviews, for whatever the fuck it is your job to spread at the very least their message. You could say, I didn't like this album, but hey guys, go check them out on this and this platform. You might like it. Not being like purposely shitting on the band to get more views. I never do that. I can say clearly to you, I don't like Meshuggah because of this, and this, but I can see somebody else liking this. There's no more black and white. I don't think that should exist.
Yeah, I've taken that route as well. Actually, if I don't like a band, I just don't talk about them. And there's plenty of bands I don't get into. There's very few bands that I don't like in terms of I would never listen to them or what have you, because in terms of metal and rock, for me, it's more about whole genres. We've already spoken about it in the past. My lack of an appetite for listening to rap or hip hop or most pop music, I just won't do it. But I won't talk about it. I don't care. It's just it's over there. It's on the sideline. There is one or two hip hop bands loosely described as hip hop: Beastie Boys, Cypress Hill, Ugly Duckling. There's been some stuff in the past that I've plugged into, but it's can count on the amount of fans that I'm holding up. There is this is so we're talking about loyalty leading to advocacy. Let's talk about social responsibility. Okay, so if you have a platform, even if it's a relatively small platform that we both have, I do believe you have an obligation. This is more about my sense of where True North is in a societal perspective. You do have an obligation to uplift, not to tear down. Yes, absolutely review things with a critical eye, but do so from a perspective of knowledge. Okay. And and nobody has to listen to me or anybody else for that matter, but I've always, if I have anything critical to say, I always point out where the opportunities are. In other words, you did this really well. Okay. I wish I heard more of that. Not this bit here sucks and the voice here sucks, blah, boom. I used to do these micro reviews on Instagram. So 100 words or whatever it might have been. And I remember there was a group called Cobra Spell. Have you heard of them?
Yeah, I just actually added them to my list to check out.
Yeah, well, I'm very keen to hear your thoughts when you do sink your teeth into them, okay? Because I think they're not quite there yet. And you'll know, I believe someone like you who's schooled and knowledgeable will know what I mean when you hear them. That I can't remember now off the top of my head whether it was the songwriting or I think the vocalist in particular, I think just don't know whether the vocalist is the right vocalist for the group. That's what it was. And I made that recommendation. Great singer in their own right, but maybe not the right partnership. Hey, Nervosa went through a split. Fernanda left Nervosa and has now got another band called Crypta. I thought she was great they're a Brazilian band. I thought she was great in Nervosa, but Pritica, is that Prica? I can't remember. Anyway, the guitarist seems to have her hands on the steering wheel in that band there, and found some great members to replace Fernanda and the drummer, the outgoing drummer at the time. So you got to deal with all manner of things when you're in a band, and fans will stick with you. Coming back to that keyword advocacy, keywords of advocacy and loyalty, they'll come back to you provided you're authentic. You've still got to be you. You can't have the Motley Crue and situation where you've got guys in different tour buses turning up, and the only time that they don't even talk to each other, but the only time they interact is when they're on stage for their 90 minutes. Those days are gone. There's no, unless you are in Motley Crue or Metallica, you could never do that. New bands could never do that.
Well, you know who said that? When I interviewed Hannes from Sabaton, and Snow Shaw was his drumming teacher. And he's like, what is the most important lesson Snow has taught you? He told me this, it has nothing to do with drumming. He's like, nobody wants an asshole on a tour bus. That's it. He's like, you got to be a cool dude, man. So keep it chill.
I couldn't imagine how bad it would be to be on tour for any length of time, like 8 nights. Imagine being in a van in Europe for 8 or 9 weeks with an asshole.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's just horror stories. And I guess I'll do like the closing bit here. Is to kind of just reinforce these couple things. And again, guys, I want to hear from you as well. What do you think is the solution to this whole conundrum for various bands and them trying to make it? Of course, we're not talking about established bands. We're talking about bands that are struggling, that are having a hard time, but they have something to offer for us. What would be your solution to this whole project? Please let us know down below in the comments. If you have any criticism of what we've said as well, we love reading those comments as well. Andrew always comes on to the videos and answers these questions as well. We just enjoy doing that. But coming from me, again, it's the responsibility, which is a big one that I don't see among a lot of reviewers and reactors. There's a couple that I follow that I really enjoy that are doing this, is the responsibility on the social media side from reviewers, from reactors, from guys who cover the media coverage, big journal entries, not being clickbaity. All of them, they have a social responsibility, but it's also a responsibility on the band's part to do things that they do not want to do, that take a whole lot of fucking time, probably even more sometimes than music. But this will take you to the next step, is utilizing your platform.
Agreed. Well said. Utilizing a platform in a way that delivers meaningful content and at the same time for people like you and I still gives us an opportunity to plug into and listen to albums because we are driven by listening to albums for the most part. There you go.
And you know what? I'm gonna give a little snippet to everybody on for next week's episode. I think February basically be at the end, and there won't be really many new albums for us to come out and talk about. In February, on next week, we're gonna discuss albums in February that we've listened to that came out in February, what we liked, what we disliked, what things have we discovered. So tune in next time for that episode as well.
Awesome, mate. Another cracker of a conversation. Yeah, join us in the comment section, people. Like I said throughout the chat, help us spread the good word with this channel here. Go down to the comment section, add your 2 cents. Even if you're critical of some of the things that we've said, if you do so in a meaningful way where you want to initiate dialogue, there's the key word, another key word, dialogue there. We would be happy to enter into that with you.
And guys, please go down below in the description, go to the link of Stars and Guitars podcast and check out some Andrew stuff. He's a great interviewer, guys. Check him out. Sir, always a pleasure.
Likewise, brother. Thanks so much.